I know at one point I mentioned that I would be doing a top 10 video on animals in video games, probably several months ago, and finally, this is it. To be clear, this list is about types of animals as opposed to specific individual characters, because I'll leave that list for another day. When putting together this list, I considered how popular that type of animal is, such as how often it might show up in prominent roles in different games. I also factored in some other things as well, such as how they are represented, and how much people seem to like them. Anyways, this list is entirely my own opinion, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if you guys have different opinions from me. If you would have done something differently, then feel free to put your own list down in the comment section below, as I always enjoy getting feedback from my viewers. Well, here it is, my video for the top 10 animal species in video games. I hope you guys enjoy. Unfortunately for most fish, their purpose typically is to simply be caught by the player. Whether it's the primary focus of the game, or it's just featured as a simple minigame, fish typically find themselves in more or less the same situation. While there are some fish who have played slightly more important roles, examples of these are still pretty few and far between. There have been so many different kinds of insects featured in video games that I ultimately decided to group them all under one big category. Pretty much everything has found its way into many game franchises, from ants to spiders to mosquitoes to bees. Insects typically are featured as being fairly basic enemies. That being said, however, there certainly are some insects that could easily step on you. Like insects, there are so many birds that I felt like it was necessary to just include them under one broad category. Although not many birds find their way into main roles, there are a handful that certainly stand out as some of the more memorable characters in gaming. Chickens especially seem to have found their way into a variety of games, usually in which they often tend to be significantly more deadly than their real-life counterparts. There have somewhat surprisingly been quite a few major characters in video games that are some type of lizard. In more recent video games, however, it seems that lizards don't quite get as much love as they once did. Many times they are even relatively harmless and just seem to be essentially part of the scenery. In an age where remaking older games is relatively popular to do, perhaps we may eventually see some of those characters return to glory. Whether you're hunting them or they're hunting you, bears are quite a force to be reckoned with. Bears have been featured in a variety of roles throughout several different franchises. Probably one of the most well known is Banjo from banjo-kazooie games. Of course, during the 90s, Rare could probably throw just about any animal in a starring role and make it work. Although most of the time, they are relegated much more to minor roles, bears are still staple characters in many video games. Although they may be extinct in real life, they are far from it in the world of video games. Like another animal that appears a little higher up on this list, dinosaurs have often made great antagonists. They do have a tendency to be portrayed as rather unintelligent, relying more on their brute strength than anything else, but occasionally have been portrayed with some manner of intelligence from time to time. Strong and fierce, they not only make formidable opponents, but also often end up being pretty memorable characters too. Horses essentially are to fantasy action-adventure games what annoying water levels are to platformers. In the several games they appear in, they typically offer a method of transportation from one place to another that is much faster than running. However, they often are much more than a simple vehicle. In many games, the horse is just as, if not more than, fully developed and likable as a character than some of the human characters in those games. Without a doubt, horses have become not only one of the most useful, but also one of the most well-liked animals in video games. Monkeys are obviously pretty close to humans, and as such, they can do quite a few of the same things that humans can. This allows for them to fit in easily as the main character of a video game. In addition to eating a lot of bananas, video game monkeys have been featured as evil scientists, reptile-bashing brutes, and, a presidential candidate? technically I suppose I didn't really specify that in order to get a spot on this list, it has to be a real animal. Plus, dragons are so incredibly commonplace in video games that I would be wrong not to include them. I guess I could have included them with lizards, but I really just felt like it wouldn't do them justice. Dragons are a staple in the vast majority of fantasy RPGs and action-adventure games. Many times, a dragon is even featured as the main antagonist. Of course, they are essentially perfect for such a role given their intimidating size, fiery breath, and ability to soar across great distances with great speed. Heck, there are tons of games that even feature dragon in the title. Before we get to number 1, I do have a few honorable mentions that I would like to recognize that just narrowly missed making this list. Dogs have played several different roles in video games. There are dogs that play, dogs that sing, and dogs that hunt down dangerous criminals. There have been several dogs featured in both main and supporting roles in video games and are inarguably probably one of the most used animals in video games. There are so many great video game characters that are dogs that it is almost impossible to not give them the number 1 spot. Not to sound too cliched here, but if any other reason were still needed, dogs are still a man's best friend, even in video games. That is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate you hitting that like button down below. Also, if you like this and want to see more of my content, you can click that subscribe button so you can be notified of when I come out with future videos. Thanks again for watching, and as always, have a great day. Hey there everyone, if you're still here and you feel the need to see more of my videos, you can click over here to see the last countdown I did, top 5 Mega Evolutions in Pokemon X and Y. Or if you want to see more video game animals, you can click here to watch a trivia video I did on one of everyone's favorite cats in gaming. Before you do that, however, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, everyone.